There is a voice inside you. It has been there for as long as you can remember. It was there when you woke up this morning. It was there when you looked in the mirror. It was there when you thought about your future and quietly told you what was and wasn't possible for you. You've never questioned it. Not really. You've argued with other people. You've doubted books, opinions, advice. But that voice, you've let it run. You've let it narrate your entire life as if it were a trusted guide, as if it knew something you didn't. And here is what most people never realize. That voice is not the truth. That voice is not even yours. Not originally. It was installed. Quietly, slowly, over years, by experiences you didn't choose, by people who were also operating from their own broken voice, by moments that left a mark so deep you stopped questioning the conclusions they left behind. And now that voice speaks, and you obey. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because the voice sounds so much like you that you never thought to ask, wait, is this actually true? Think about what happens when you try something new. Before you've even begun, the voice is already speaking. You're probably going to fail. You've tried this before. Other people can do this. You can't. Who do you think you are? You didn't choose those thoughts. They arrived, fully formed, confident, certain, and somewhere inside you, you listened. You adjusted, you pulled back, you played smaller. Not because the situation demanded it, but because the voice said so. This is what psychology calls the inner critic, but that name is too soft for what it actually does. A critic gives feedback. This voice doesn't give feedback. It delivers verdicts. It sentences you. It tells you who you are, what you deserve, what's realistic, what's too much, what you should be ashamed of. And it does all of this with a calm, familiar authority that sounds exactly like your own thoughts. That's the trap. When something sounds like your own thinking, you don't question it. You just follow it. Where did this voice come from? That is the question most people never stop to ask, because they're too busy obeying it. Your brain is a pattern machine. From the moment you were born, it was looking for rules. Rules about safety, rules about worth, rules about what happens when you step forward and what happens when you stay quiet. Every time something painful happened, your brain made a note. Every time someone criticized you, your brain filed it. Every time you were rejected, ignored, embarrassed, overlooked, your brain ran a calculation and it built a model, a working model of who you are and what the world does to people like you. That model became the voice. The voice isn't trying to destroy you. That's important to understand. It's not your enemy in the way you might think. It was built as protection. When you were small and the world felt large and unpredictable, your mind created a system to keep you safe. Don't try too hard. You'll be disappointed. Don't trust too easily. You'll be hurt. Don't stand out. You'll be embarrassed. These weren't failures of character. They were adaptations, smart ones even, at the time. The problem is, the protection system never updated. It's still running the same code it wrote when you were a child. The same warnings, the same limits, the same conclusions. You grew up. The voice didn't. And this is where it becomes damage. Not in the dramatic sense, not in the clinical sense, but in the quiet, everyday sense of a person who is living smaller than they are, who talks themselves out of things before they start, who feels a pull towards something and immediately hears the voice explain why it won't work, who wants to believe in themselves but can't quite get there because every time they reach for that belief, the voice offers 5 reasons to doubt. You know this feeling. You've felt it. Maybe you're feeling it right now. The voice has opinions about your body, about your intelligence, about how people see you, about whether you're the kind of person who gets what they want, or the kind who watches other people get it. And the cruelest thing about this voice is that it uses your past against you. It has a perfect memory. Every embarrassment, every failure, every moment you tried and it didn't work. It keeps those moments alive, not to help you learn, but to keep you small. Remember what happened last time. Remember how that ended. You really want to go through that again? Most people answer those questions. They engage with the voice. They debate it. They try to convince it. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe I've changed. Maybe. And the voice has a response ready. Every time, because you cannot win a debate against a system that was designed to protect itself. The voice doesn't want to be wrong. Being wrong would mean the protection is no longer necessary, and that feels to the nervous system like danger. So, the voice doubles down, finds more evidence, builds a stronger case, pulls from deeper in the archive until you give up, until you agree, until you settle back into the identity the voice has assigned you and call it being realistic. This is the part that matters. Realistic is not a neutral word. Realistic means in line with what I believe to be true about myself. It doesn't mean objectively accurate. It doesn't mean based on evidence. It means based on the model, the old, outdated, never updated model that the voice is still running. When the voice tells you to be realistic, it's not giving you wisdom. It's protecting its own conclusions. Think about someone who grew up being told they weren't smart. Maybe it was said directly. Maybe it was just implied, through comparison, through silence, through sighs. That child builds a model. I am not the smart one. 20 years later, that person is sitting in a meeting, and they have an idea, a genuinely good idea, and the voice says, "Don't say it. You'll sound stupid." And they don't say it. Not because the idea was bad, because the voice is still operating from a 20-year-old conclusion that was never true to begin with. That is the life most people are living. Not a life they chose, not a life built from who they actually are. A life built around the architecture of a voice that was never theirs. Running on rules written by pain, enforcing an identity that was assigned, not chosen. And the worst part, they think this is just how they are. They've heard the voice so many times that they've stopped hearing it as a voice at all. It's just become their personality, their nature, their truth. But here is what I want you to sit with right now. The fact that you are listening to this, the fact that somewhere in you there is a part that wonders, what if this voice isn't right about me? That is not the voice. That is something deeper. That is the part of you that knows it was built for more than the voice is allowing. That quiet knowing, that pull, that persistent sense that this isn't the full version of you. That is where we begin. You've been living with this voice for so long that you've stopped noticing it. That's the thing about something that never goes quiet. Eventually you stop hearing it as a separate thing. You just absorb it. You let it become the background of everything. The filter through which every decision passes. The lens through which every opportunity gets evaluated. And because it's always there, because it never pauses, you start to mistake its constant presence for accuracy. Surely something this consistent must be right. Surely something this certain must know something. It doesn't. Consistency is not the same as truth. A broken clock that never stops ticking is still broken. Here is what the voice actually does. On a daily basis, it edits you. Before you speak, it reviews what you're about to say and asks, is this safe to say? Before you act, it reviews what you're about to do and asks, is this consistent with who we've decided you are? Before you want something, before you even let yourself want it fully, it runs a probability check. People like you don't usually get things like that. You didn't ask for that check. You didn't request that filter. But it runs anyway, and most of the time, the edited version of you is the one that shows up. The smaller version. The quieter version. The version that already decided before trying. This editing happens so fast you don't even feel it. That's what makes it so powerful. It's not a long internal debate. It's not something you can easily catch. It happens in the space between thought and action, in that fraction of a second where something is possible and then suddenly it isn't. Where you had momentum and then quietly you didn't. You just feel the result. A slight pulling back, a hesitation, a reason appearing from nowhere, and you follow the reason as if you chose it, as if it was logic, As if it was wisdom, it wasn't. It was the voice, moving so fast, it looked like your own mind working. Now here is something most people find uncomfortable: to hear. The voice is not random, it has a theme. Every person's inner voice has a core wound at the center of it. A central belief about themselves that everything else organizes around. For some people that belief is, I am not enough. For others it is, I am not safe. For others, I am not worthy of being loved. For others, I do not belong. You may already feel, which one is yours? That core belief is the engine. Everything the voice says, every doubt it generates, every warning it issues, every limit it enforces, traces back to that one central conclusion. And the voice's entire job, whether it knows it or not, is to prove that belief true. This is called confirmation bias, but deeper. It's not just that you notice evidence that supports what you believe, it's that you unconsciously create situations that confirm it. You self-sabotage. Not because you want to fail, but because failure confirms something familiar. And familiar, even when painful, feels safer than unknown. The nervous system prefers a known pain to an unknown outcome. So the voice keeps steering you back. Back to the familiar. Back to the confirmed. Back to the small. Not out of cruelty. Out of a desperate, outdated need to keep you inside the lines of what it knows. Think about how this plays out in real life. Someone with the belief, I am not enough, gets an opportunity, a real one, something that could change things, and instead of moving toward it, they spend 3 weeks preparing, perfecting, making sure every detail is in place before they begin. They call it being thorough. They call it taking it seriously. But underneath that, the voice is running a different program. If I prepare long enough, maybe I'll finally be enough to deserve this. And if I never feel ready, I never have to find out if I was wrong about myself. So they prepare forever, and the opportunity quietly passes, and the voice says, see, it wasn't meant for you anyway. Or take someone with the belief, I am not safe to be seen. They have genuine talent, real depth, something worth sharing. But every time they get close to being visible, to putting their voice out there, something stops them. Sudden self-doubt. A reason to wait. A feeling that it's not ready yet. They think they're being humble. They think they're being careful. But the voice is protecting the wound. Because being seen means being judged. And being judged means the core. Belief might be confirmed publicly, and that is the thing the voice cannot allow, so it keeps them invisible and calls it waiting for the right time. The right time never comes, not for people who are waiting for the voice to give permission, because the voice was not built to give permission. It was built to give warnings. And a system built to warn will always find something to warn about. There will always be a reason to wait. There will always be a risk that hasn't been addressed. There will always be a version of you that isn't ready yet, according to the voice, because readiness is not what the voice is measuring. Safety is, and safety, to the voice, means staying exactly where you are. You have to understand what you're actually dealing with here. This is not a confidence problem. This is not a motivation problem. This is not something that gets fixed by a morning routine or a vision board or 3 deep breaths before you do the scary thing. Those things are surface. And this voice lives underneath the surface. It lives in the layer of you that decides, before your conscious mind even gets involved, what is and isn't possible for someone like you. You cannot affirmation your way past a belief that deep. You cannot think positive thoughts over a wound that old. The voice will simply absorb those affirmations and file them under, nice try. So, what do you actually do? That's what you want to know. And it starts with something much simpler than most people expect. It starts with separation, not fighting the voice, not silencing the voice, not trying to replace it with a louder, more positive voice. Separation. The moment you begin to experience the voice as something that speaks to you rather than something that is you, everything changes. Because right now, you're fused with it. You hear it and you think, that's my thought, that's my opinion of myself, that's the truth about me. But it isn't. It's a pattern. It's a learned response. It's a protection system that got confused about its job, and the first act of psychological freedom is to hear it and not automatically agree. This sounds simple. It isn't. Because the voice is fast, and it's been doing this your whole life, and it knows exactly which words to use to make you comply. It knows your specific vulnerabilities. It knows the exact tone that makes you pull back. It knows which memories to pull up at which moments. It's not an accident. It's a finely tuned system that has been calibrated to you specifically. Which means the work of separation isn't a one-time decision. It's a practice, a daily noticing, a slow, consistent building of space between the voice and your response to it. And in that space, something starts to happen, something quiet. You begin to realize that the voice has been wrong before, that the things it said would destroy you didn't, that the versions of you it said weren't possible became possible anyway, that its certainty, that cold absolute certainty, was never actually based on anything real. It was based on fear, and fear dressed up as certainty is still just fear. This is not the moment where everything changes overnight. This is the moment where you begin to see the mechanism, and once you see it, you cannot fully unsee it. Once you hear the voice as a voice and not as the truth, a door opens. Not a door to a perfect life with no self-doubt. A door to a life where the voice no longer gets the final word. Where you hear it, understand what it's trying to protect, and then choose. Choose deliberately. Choose from the deeper part of you, the part that knows. There is a version of you that exists underneath the voice. Not a perfect version, not an untouched version, but a version that was there before the voice got loud, before the world started teaching you what to think about yourself, before the conclusions were made, and the model was built, and the warnings became your inner weather. That version didn't disappear. It got quiet. It got buried under years of repetition. Years of the voice confirming itself. Years of you living inside the identity that was handed to you. But it's still there. And somewhere in you, you already know that. That's why you're here. Most people spend their entire lives in a negotiation with the voice. They don't try to question it fundamentally. They just try to manage it. They try to be brave enough to act, despite it. They try to build enough external success to drown it out. They try to find enough validation from other people to outweigh what the voice says in private. None of it works, not permanently, because you cannot fill an internal wound with external evidence. You can have every achievement, every relationship, every sign of success that the world recognizes, and still lie awake at night while the voice dismantles all of it. Because the voice doesn't operate in the world of facts. It operates in the world of identity, and identity is not changed by what you accumulate. It's changed by what you decide is true about yourself, at the level beneath thought. This is the shift that most people miss. They're trying to defeat the voice on its own terms. They're trying to out-argue it, out-achieve it, out-prove it. But the voice doesn't respond to argument. It responds to identity, the voice speaks from what you believe yourself to be, and it will keep speaking in perfect alignment with that belief until the belief itself changes. Not the thoughts, not the behavior, not the external circumstances. The belief, the deep, quiet, cellular level sense of what is true about you. So how does that actually change? Not through force, not through discipline alone, not through deciding one morning that you're going to think differently from now on. It changes through consistent exposure to a different story, a story you begin to tell yourself, not loudly, not aggressively, but quietly and repeatedly. In the same way the original belief was built, slowly, through repetition, through accumulated experience, through the same message arriving again and again until it became the only message. You knew. You have to begin replacing the architecture, not overnight. Not in a moment of inspiration, brick by brick, quietly, with patience. And the first brick is this: catching the voice in the act. Not after the fact, not in reflection, but in the moment. When you feel yourself pulling back from something, pause. Not to fight the voice, just to notice it, to say, there it is, that is the voice, That is the pattern. That is the old model doing what it was built to do. This is not me. This is a response. This is something that was learned. That noticing, that simple act of creating 1 inch of space between the voice and your automatic response, that is where the change begins. It doesn't feel dramatic. It won't feel like a breakthrough. It will feel like a small, quiet act that couldn't possibly be enough. But it is the foundation of everything that comes after. Because what you're doing in that moment is practicing a different relationship with your own mind. You're practicing being the observer, not the content. You're practicing the understanding that thoughts are events that happen in you, not truths that define you. The voice says, you're not capable of this. And instead of agreeing, instead of debating, you simply notice. That's the voice. That's the pattern. And then you ask, what would I do right now if that voice wasn't here? Not if the fear was gone. Not if you felt ready. Just, what would the version of me that doesn't obey this voice automatically do right now? And then you do that thing, small or large. You do it. This is not about becoming fearless. Fear is not your enemy. The voice is not your enemy either. Not really. They're both just old systems trying to do a job they were assigned before you were old enough to assign your own. The goal is not to destroy them. The goal is to stop letting them drive, to move them from the driver's seat to the passenger seat, to let them speak, to hear them, to even understand them with compassion, and then to keep moving anyway. Because motion is what the voice cannot survive. The voice thrives in stillness, in hesitation, in the space where you're thinking about doing something but haven't done it yet. The moment you move, the moment you act from the deeper part of yourself, the voice loses its grip. Not forever, not completely, but in that moment, you are bigger than it. And that matters. Every time you are bigger than the voice, something shifts, not in the voice, in you. In the record, your nervous system is keeping. Because your brain is still that pattern machine it always was, still collecting data, still building models, and every time you act against the voice's verdict, you add a data point to a new model, a model that says, maybe I am capable of more than I was told, a model that says, maybe the voice doesn't have the full picture, a model that says, maybe who I am is larger than the identity I was handed. You're not just doing something brave in those moments. You're rewriting the architecture, slowly, patiently, deliberately, and over time, something begins to happen. The voice gets quieter, not silent, maybe never fully silent, but quieter. Because it's no longer being fed by your compliance. Every time you comply with the voice, you confirm its model. You tell the system, yes, this is accurate, keep running this. Every time you don't comply, every time you move forward despite it, you starve the model. You tell the system, this conclusion is no longer relevant here, and slowly, the system updates. It has to, because the brain follows behavior. Not the other way around. You have been waiting to feel different before you act differently. That is backwards. You act differently first, even when it feels false, even when the voice is loud. Even when every part of the old model is screaming that this isn't who you are, you act from the person you are becoming, and the feeling follows the action, the identity follows the behavior, the silence of the voice, follows the repeated proof that it was wrong. This is not motivation. This is not positive thinking. This is how the nervous system actually works. This is how identity actually changes. Through the body. Through action. Through evidence accumulated slowly over time, the person you want to be is not waiting for you on the other side of some dramatic transformation. They are not waiting for you to finally silence the voice completely. They are not waiting for you to feel ready or worthy or certain. That person is built in the ordinary moments. In the moment you catch the voice and don't obey it. In the moment you do the thing while afraid. In the moment you choose the new story over the old one, not because it feels true yet, but because you are deciding that it will become true. These moments don't announce themselves. They don't feel significant while they're happening, but they are the work. They are the only work that actually matters. You have been narrated into a version of yourself that is smaller than you are. That narration started before you could question it, before you had the language or the awareness to say, wait, is this actually true about me? But you have that language now, you have that awareness now, and that changes everything, not because the voice will stop, not because the old belief will dissolve overnight, but because now you know what's happening. You can see the mechanism, you can hear the voice for what it is, a pattern, a protection, a very old, very outdated story about who you are and what you're capable of. And the truth, the actual truth, is that you don't know yet what you're capable of, because you've never fully operated from the version of you that isn't, being run by that voice. You've never given that version enough room, enough air, enough consistent action to show you what it can do. That version has been waiting, patient, quiet, certain in a way the voice never was. Not loud. Not aggressive, not desperate for proof, just waiting for you to stop letting the wrong voice lead. This is where you begin, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when the voice finally goes quiet. Here, with this knowing, with this decision, that. The voice inside you is not the final word on who you are, that it never was, and that from this moment, you are the one who decides what is true about you, quietly, deliberately, without apology. That is not the end of the journey. That is the beginning of the real one.